Hello and welcome to a brand new video. Previously, we discussed Plato's first dialogue, Euthyphro, where Socrates discusses the nature of goodness and piety, which brings up the question of whether something is good because it's chosen by the gods, or is it chosen by the gods because it's good. But in today's video, we'll continue on to the next dialogue, titled Apology. So the dialogue is structured into three parts. You have Socrates' defense, the verdict of the jury, and his sentencing. In the opening of Apology, Socrates stands before a jury of 500 Athenian men to address the charges brought before him. These charges are leveled by orders Lycon, Antus, and Miletus, and they accuse him of corrupting the youth and impiety against the gods of Athens. And Socrates declares that he won't resort to rhetoric or emotional manipulation, and he won't plead for his life, and rather he says that true wisdom lies in recognizing one's own ignorance, especially in matters about what is beyond human understanding, such as death. And he won't allow his family to appear in court to soften the hearts of the jury either, but instead he stands in firm belief that his philosophical mission is divinely ordained, and his commitment to it outweighs any fear of death. And he is challenging the status quo, but is for the moral improvement and not for corruption. But alas, in the second part, Socrates was found guilty of corrupting the youth and impiety. And the jury's decision was narrowly against him, and had only 30 more jurors voted in his favor, he would have been acquitted. And since the Athenian law requires both the defendant and prosecutor to propose their own punishments, then the jury would typically choose between the two punishments. And someone in Socrates' position would probably suggest a lighter punishment, like a fine or an exile or imprisonment, in hopes that the jury would choose that over a harsher punishment, such as death. However, Socrates uses this opportunity to point out the absurdity of the trial. So instead of trying to appease the jury, he does quite the opposite. He doubles down on his belief that he did no wrong, and he sarcastically proposes a reward, a free meal at the it's called the Pyrantium, which is basically Athens' public hall reserved for honored citizens like Olympic champions. So he's basically saying that instead of punishing him, or rather punishing him would be like punishing someone who brought glory to Athens. So what I like about that is that he's not, compromising on any of his basic principles that he believes in. And even when his life is on the line, he won't pretend that he's guilty just to save himself. But naturally, the court denied his request. In the third part, Socrates addresses the final moments following his conviction and impending execution. So Socrates begins by addressing the jurors who voted for his death. He tells them that by sentencing him to death, they now have to endure its consequences. And he predicts that his death will be sort of like a martyrdom, that it'll inspire others, particularly young people, to rise up and challenge the status quo just like he did. For the jurors who voted in his favor, Socrates offers reassurance, and he talks about something called the daimonion, which is basically his, it's kind of like a divine inner voice or spiritual sign that he believed that guided him throughout his life. And there's kind of like a spidey sense that stopped him from doing anything wrong. And during the trial, the daimonion didn't stop him from saying anything. So Socrates takes that as a sign that he acted justly and correctly, even though it led to his death sentence. And therefore he trusts that dyingness must not be that bad, or else the daimonion would have warned him. And he considers two possible outcomes. Either death is the complete cessation of existence, which would be a peaceful release from the struggles of life, or death is a migration to a higher realm where souls of the virtuous, like those great poets and heroes, dwell. In either case, Socrates is unafraid of death. At the end of his speech, he offers a final plea regarding his sons. He asks the Athenians that should they encounter his children in the future, to ensure that they are corrected if they show any arrogance or if they prioritize material wealth over virtue. And to me, this dialogue seemed more like a story compared to Euthyphro, which we covered in the last video. Euthyphro felt more philosophical, but this dialogue did highlight the relationship between philosophy and politics, or political life, and then how they could never see eye to eye. And Athenian politics was about customs and tradition, while Socrates flipped the city-state on his head, such that we're still talking about him thousands of years later. He knew that the trial was bigger than himself, and it left a lasting message as well as that still resonates with us today. So Socrates could have easily beat the charges, but he didn't on purpose. He wanted to challenge the political and religious foundations that the Athenians had through provocation. And even if you take it at face value that he was just trying to defend himself rather than to accomplish a grand goal, he's still being true to himself. This is the end of this video. Hopefully that made sense to you, and if not, please leave a comment below and I'll try to answer it as best as I can. And the next video, we're going to cover the next dialogue, Crito, and hopefully you can check that video out as well. And don't forget to like and subscribe as always.